you had a busy week and missed the news. Well, this is the show that catches you up with the top news stories and interviews featured on ENCA over the past 7 days. I'm Melissa Duprea and I'll be bringing you up to speed. A fire in a high-rise building in Johannesburg CBD claims the lives of scores of people. Nandipa Magudumana appears for her bail application in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. And the latest on the Senza Miyiwas murder trial. A horrific fire has torn through a multi-level building, claiming dozens of lives in the Johannesburg inner city. Scores of people have been injured as well. It's one of the many hijacked buildings in the city centre, causing a headache for property owners and authorities. Our news teams were on the ground to bring us the latest.
73 people have tragically lost their lives in this fire, and we do understand that now 52 people have since been injured and been taken to various hospitals. According to the MEC for Health in the province, she has indicated that some of these injuries are rather serious. The mortuaries will be able to handle the capacity of 73 bodies, but we must emphasize that even though the fatalities currently stands at 73, it is a number that's likely to increase. This is an indictment on the city of Johannesburg. They have indicated and confirmed that indeed this building is owned by the city of Johannesburg.
I'm about 100 meters away from the actual building, where you'll see just people that are displaced, they're lost. You see their luggage on the ground here, not knowing what to do.
I'm still standing in front of this actual building, the 5-story building that was gutted down by fire. We know 73 people have since lost their lives and over 50 have been taken to hospitals around Johannesburg.
Nandipa Magudumana was back in court this week as she continues her latest bid for freedom. She told the court that rapist and murderer Thabo Bester forced her to flee the country. The state is opposing bail, saying she's a flight risk. Senior reporter Silindelo Masikane was in court.
In her bail application, Dr. Nandipa Magudumana submitted an affidavit to the court. In it, she says convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Bester threatened her, forced her into a car and took her out of the country against her will. She insists she had no intention to leave South Africa. During closing arguments, her legal team poked holes in the strength of the state's case against her.
The nature of evidence upon which the state relies upon is of a very poor nature, is unsubstantiated, notwithstanding the fact that they make reference to so many people and the fact that they have even obtained their affidavits, but they never even attempted to file just one confirmatory affidavit, nothing whatsoever.
Her legal team also says the schedule of the bail application is now in dispute.
If your worship looks at the charge sheet before you, there are 16 counts. Out of those 16 counts, what makes this matter to be a Schedule 5, looking into those charges, is only count number 3 and count number 4. The rest of other counts, they don't turn this whole matter into a Schedule 5, because those are offences that ordinarily falls under a Schedule 1. The court knows the onus and the standard of proof if a bail applicant is facing a Schedule 5.
The state says it will need time to address the court on the schedule.
The court shall have noted that there are issues that unfortunately has now been raised, one of which is very crucial and which is it relates to a schedule. I would not have anticipated that there will be such argument on a schedule after we have agreed and the defense had indeed agreed that it is a Schedule 5. So whatever I have prepared so far would not have dealt with the issue of the schedule. Therefore, I need to work on my prepared heads of argument in that respect.
Court proceedings are expected to resume on the 4th of September, with the state presenting its closing arguments. Slindalo Masigani, Bloemfontein in the Free State.
A gun recovered from accused number 3 fired the shot that killed soccer star Senza Miyiwas. That's the evidence from ballistics expert Chris Mangena. He says the weapon confiscated from Tombise Mncube and linked to a taxi-related crime was later linked to the Miyiwas case. ENCA's Manqoba Mncunu reports.
Chilling details have emerged about the bullet wound that ended Senza Miyiwas' life on the 26th of October in 2014.
The cause of death consistent with bullet wound of the chest involving the heart and lung.
Previously, the court has heard that Senza Miyiwas was shot by one of the intruders during a scuffle that broke out inside the house. Steenkamp says that shot was fired at close range with the gun pressed against his chest.
So when I opened this wound and explored it, I noted this black granular material. This wound is consistent with a contact bullet entrance wound. And I say that due to the fact that when a muzzle is pressed against the skin, all the elements, that's the gas, the heat, the gunpowder, are driven into the skin.
Steenkamp says the bullet was fired at an angle facing downwards and tore through his right lung and heart, causing him to bleed internally.
It lacerates the heart, resulting a 3 centimeter by 1 centimeter irregular laceration, that's a tear, extending from the anterior wall, that's the front wall of the right ventricle, that's the right chamber of the heart that pushes the blood towards the lungs. The person is bleeding into a body cavity, like into the chest cavity. He's bleeding from a source, in this case the heart and the lung, and this blood is flowing into the chest cavity.
Steenkamp also revealed that Miyiwas is likely to have only survived for moments after the shot was fired.
The heart and the lungs are important organs, and injury, especially this type of injury to those organs, can cause a fatality. Sometimes it's instantaneously. In this case, I do not think so because of the mechanism of death, which I explained as possibly the blood loss. And I think in this case, and he's quite a fit young man, he probably would have survived seconds, minutes, definitely not hours.
But the defense also raised questions about the findings.
You testified about the wound track, that it was from the front to the back, but towards lower side. Could that have been caused by the fact that the shooter was taller than the deceased?
It's possible, yes.
The details, though, proved to be too much to bear for Miyiwas' relatives who were inside court. The trial continues on Wednesday, with ballistic expert Chris Mangena expected on the stand. Manqoba Mncunu, Pretoria.
Shortly after the break, we feature some of the big interviews done by our anchors. Stay with us. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Melissa Dupré. The people who were inside the house when Senza Miyiwas was killed should be arrested. That's the contention from Sifiso Miyiwas, who says his brother was killed by one of them. He says what the court has heard so far is far from the truth. He spoke exclusively to ENCA.
The scene outside the Khumalo house in October 2014, a day after Senza Miyiwas was murdered. But 8 years later, his family believes those inside know the truth, including his friends Tumelo Madlala and Thokozisi Twala.
Yabo nje umuntu okhuluma indawo ukuthi kwangena abantu lapha into engekho leyo. Sayisho kwaseqaleni lento ukuthi abekho abantu abangena lapha. Lento yenzeka khona lapha endlini. Oyedwa wabo wenza lento khona lapha endlini. Otumelo benomthoko ayimfethu. Into engayisho nje yabona uTumela indlela ayizwana ngayo noSenzo. Wahleze ethi yena ngamfela uSenzo. Bathi ziningi izinto ezenzeka after usenza shona lapho because utu bamthatha bamyisa enyangeni. I believe ukuthi awala utu uthunjiwe akuyena utu lo simbonayo. Utu umelwe ngempela bayizolikhuluma iqiniso.
Do you think they're protecting someone?
Khona umuntu abamvikelayo.
Miyiwa insists the 5 men in the dock are innocent.
Yabona la majida lawo bazilutha labantu ba innocent ngasho kwasekuqaleni. Yona phela into yaze sixabanisa no Mr Nel. Ngimtshela ngithi Mr Nel labantu aba innocent. Wathi na labantu ba involve ngabe na ngaze ngaphuma athi ngiyaphuma kunina mina. Ukuthi niyasixhasa kanjani ngamane ngiphume ngeke ngilibele ukuxhasa abantu abangayikholwa into engishoyo ngoba phela sezala ngoba thina sasibona uGininda uyena behind land obopha labafana. Ubopha labafana ngoba efihla icover up u2020 statement. Labafana bazilutho baqala ukathiwa labafana bapromise imali. Bathenjisa imali. Umunye wathiwa ngazi 300,000. Umunye ngazi noma basi 3 million ini. Ama families angakutshela.
Miyiwa says those inside the house have a case to answer to.
Ilindela mfethu ukuthi baboshwe bonke ababesendlini ngoba ngineshow ukuthi iqiniso lizovela. Sesikhuleke kakhulu mfethu. Umuntu okholelwa kakhulu uNkulunkulu sikhulekile. And ngiyakholwa ukuthi uNkulunkulu iqiniso uzoliveza and uyabona izinto ezenzeka ecourt ukuthi iyakhona eqinisweni ngoba na kade kuvela ukuthi isibhamu lesa sibhamu kuyavela ukuthi asilink nale case. Uyabona ukuthi shuthi ubufakazi obukhona obuvezwa laba bantu angeke buze buhlangana. Ijudge sekuyilona ufanele ithathe isinqumo kuyisona.
Is there a link between the firearm found in accused number 3 and the Senza Miyiwas murder? Well, that's the evidence from ballistics expert Chris Mangena, who's been giving an account of what he found at the crime scene. ENCA reporter Manqoba Mngunu has more.
When we talk about the ballistics experts, just the information that came out of it, how explosive is it for this case?
Quite damning evidence, William. And this is because, I mean, for the longest time, we've been hearing of the possible links of accused number 3 to this particular crime. So we got a confirmation from the court that it was actually a firearm that had been recovered from him back in 2015 that was ultimately linked to the death of Senza Miyiwas. So how this came about, you recall that, Tobisi Mncube, we've heard evidence that seems to suggest that at the time when Senza Miyiwas was shot, he had been involved in crime, he had weapons and stacks of money, but also to the effect that he had dreadlocks just prior to this incident occurring. And in fact, even months after this had all happened, this is all part of the evidence that we heard also this week from the girlfriend as well as the landlord. And the picture that the state has been building so far as this particular accused is concerned, is that this is likely to have been the accused person that shot Senza Miyiwas.
At least 31 police officers have been killed both on and off duty in just 3 months. Police Minister Bheki Cele has called on police officers to respond to threats proportionally. Police Union Pop Crew wants President Cyril Ramaphosa to declare police killings an act of treason. ENCA anchor Gareth Edwards spoke to Union spokesperson Richard Mamabolo.
But just give me a sense, what are your members saying about why there are so many police killings on and off duty? What's happening? Good morning.
Good morning to you and the viewers. Look, there are actually about 52 police officers who have been killed since the beginning of the year. And of course, this has created a lot of anxiety amongst many of our policemen and women. The last 2 were killed just last week when we were holding our policing in Daba. And of course, it happens just a week before the annual commemoration of police killings, which will be sitting this Sunday at the Union buildings. So we have clearly seen that police have become a target, mainly for their firearms. And of course, this as well relates to the fact that there have been police stations which are attacked. And of course, I think the morale is quite low amongst police officers, especially more because there has not been a clear plan around how to deal with police killings, and yet this case continues. So our members are quite worried about it. And of course, we think that part of the measures that definitely need to be taken up is to ensure that there are legislative amendments to ensure that it is labeled treasonous. We believe that the normal charge of murder does not suffice sufficiently because, we would expect that a person would be arrested for only 25 years. So treason would obviously include harsher measures. But as well, this needs to be accompanied with the repealing of the Criminal Procedure Act 57 of 1977, which needs to be in line with the current laws of our democratic dispensation. We believe that this should also assist in actually giving police more powers to react, because as things stand, police are not sure as to how to act whenever they're confronted with such criminal people.
Ace Magashule is the latest politician to launch his own party. The former ANC Secretary General has blamed what he calls outside forces for his expulsion from Natuli House. ENCA reporter Aviwe Mtila has the story.
Ace Magashule, who was expelled from the ANC, is out of the political wilderness, launching a new party, the African Congress for Transformation.
We are here because we have suffered collective betrayal as a people and a nation at the hands of the people who claim to be our leaders. We have been sold out with few pieces of silver. Many towns are collapsing, such as in the Vaal, if you know the Vaal.
Former Hawks boss Bernie Mklameza is part of ACT's interim leadership.
When I was sitting at home, checking, reading, seeing Ace Magashule going to court, going back, coming back, Jacob Zuma going to court, going back, going to jail. I said, no, man, this issue, I'm always saying, a retired general, I must keep quiet. Whereas I see the injustice.
The party says it will hold a conference in October to elect its leadership that will take it to the 2024 national elections. Aviwe Mtila, Soweto, Johannesburg.
Coming up, we take a look at the impact of gangsterism in the Western Cape. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Melissa Dupré. Just over 86% of gang-related murders in South Africa recorded during the first quarter of this year occurred in the Western Cape. Provincial police bosses have highlighted that despite a reduction in the region's overall murder rate for the period from April to June 2023, gang killings and violence remain a huge concern. ENCA reporter Kevin Brunt has more.
This community worker has been living in Lavender for the past 51 years. He explains that his cousin was fatally shot in a drive-by shooting a year ago, while his 60-year-old sister too lost her life during sporadic gunfire in December.
We've lost before that, another cousin of mine was a year before that, he was gunned down. So it is systemic, it is the problem every year, and you have to move forward, otherwise you're going to sink.
Challenges faced by the youth particularly remains a headache and he stresses that lawmakers should intervene.
I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of leadership. Leadership needs to get down onto the ground and do a survey on the ground, a wellness survey to ask the youth, what have you been offered other than the gangsterism? The social ills has been offered to them by the drug lords and the gangsters. What has the good system offered you?
Western Cape Police Commissioner Tembisile Patekile says they are making inroads and have confiscated more than 1,600 firearms and over 92,000 rounds of ammunition since January.
Now, we do that, we see the programs that the communities are doing on awareness campaign, marches against drug lords and all that. But what we also want to do, because there's a relationship between drugs, gangs, and the guns and the firearms, and to that extent, extortion. Now, if we take the guns away and those who are selling drugs, the houses that are used for drugs, and we can confirm that those houses have been drug posts or drug outlets for some time, then we then have to look at the assets forfeiture unit to see if they cannot attach that house legally, so that that person forfeits the house to the state. But that's another angle that we want to go, so to ensure that we root off those who are making profit by using their houses as drug outlets.
Residents are looking to government to intervene and save them from the grips of violent crime. But with years of living under such dangerous conditions, they are skeptical of a noticeable difference anytime soon. Kevin Brandt, Cape Town.
Residents of Protea North in Soweto haven't had electricity for 3 months. They say when they approached Eskom for help, they were told that a transformer in the area was faulty. But the utility has washed its hands of responsibility, saying the rising number of illegal connections in the area has damaged electricity infrastructure. ENCA's Theodore Mashele compiled this report.
What was supposed to be a 2-hour scheduled blackout has turned into 2 months. Frustrated by being left in the dark, Protea North residents are taking their anger to the streets, saying enough is enough, pleading with Eskom to end their plight.
We don't want Eskom to actually help everybody. What we need is Eskom to take care of the people who are responsible and who are buying their electricity. That's the transaction that we have with Eskom. We buy our electricity. We're not supposed to suffer because of the people who are not complying.
Teachers in the community are concerned that the situation might affect high school learners writing their preliminary exams.
We are preparing for the preliminary exam, the trial exam, that is starting sometimes this week. So we don't know where to start.
A nearby care center for the elderly is also affected.
Some of the patients, they are using oxygens, so they've moved them to their families where they can be assisted with that oxygen. Others are in insulin, so insulin must be in the refrigerator.
It frustrates me, especially the money that I have spent now buying food, buying briquettes, charcoal, fire starters, things I've never used. My fridge is not working. I can't buy in bulk.
According to Eskom spokesperson Amanda Qiti, illegal connections are the root to the problem.
We picked up that these customers have bypassed their meters and also are buying electricity from these ghost vendors, which is the reason why the municipality has failed. So we then started with the engagements to say that when infrastructure is failed, we have this DPA process, which is the deferred payment arrangements, where we fine the customers for illegally connecting themselves and bypassing their meters. And that is what we did with these particular customers.
Meanwhile, residents remain in the dark while they wait for Eskom to deliver. Theodore Mashele, Johannesburg.
Tshwane Mayor Leersbrink is calling for assistance from crime intelligence. This as workers affiliated to SAMWU continue their strike. It's been going on for over a month now with a devastating impact on services in the city. Reporter Pulele Tweety-Jones has more.
Tshwane's financial situation has not been encouraging. The mayor says the metro is 3 billion rand short, which means it can't pay workers the 5.4% increase they're demanding. Some SAMWU members have been accused of bringing services in the city to a standstill. The mayor says the targeting of public infrastructure can't continue any longer.
We're going to need crime intelligence to come in, because this thing is clearly very well coordinated and folks know where to strike. So the risk with any criminality, you think you can manage it. You think you can manage it, but then you lose control. And if criminals infiltrate the strike, which is evidently already the case, they can start targeting national key points.
Some residents say they've had to ask private contractors to collect their waste, costing them a fortune.
Our service delivery is of very poor taste. For example, it's costing us 15,000 Rand a week just for removing of our dustbins. And if I can go further, the lights or the electrical infrastructure in the estate is run by Tswane, and the bulbs, 240, 260 Rand a piece, and we've got over 150 lights here. And as you know, bulbs don't last with cold and heat, etc. So that's costing us per week.
Meanwhile, SAMU says it'll study the mayor's statement and respond, including to the threats of a civil claim. Pule Lishit-Jones in Tshwane.
And that's it for this weekend's episode of Week in One. From myself and the team, stay safe.